What got you from point A, being the Angela that maybe didn't want to share that part of her life, to actually doing your first video on YouTube?
Gumption. Gumption. Actually, I can actually pinpoint it even farther than that. It was actually the YouTube Pagan Challenge is what got me motivated. I had been seeing since like I found YouTube in the Witchy community, which wasn't until about late 2010, 2011. Like, I was a late comer, I know. I'm a late bloomer when it comes to a lot of things. But yeah, it wasn't until then when I stumbled on who was the first person I stumbled on? Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Oh my gosh, I feel awful. No, I love her. Tiptoe Chick.
Tiptoe Chick.
I love her. Like, I was so sad when I found out about her passing. She was one of the first that I found. Like, she was one, and then I found Pixie Charm, Flora Pixie Charming, something like that. I mean, these are people like way back when, and I started watching them, and I was like, I didn't even know there was a community for this. You know, I was like, really? And I was like, I'm a knowledge whore, is what I say. I'm a whore of knowledge. I want to know it all. So I'd just be like eating them up. I'd be like Netflix binging before Netflix was really a thing yet. I'd be like binging all the videos that they would do. And then, yeah, it was about 2017. It was actually 2016, I think, was the first YouTube Pagan Challenge I found. And I was like, oh, this looks really interesting. But I didn't catch it until probably halfway through the year. But they picked a topic per week that they did. And then you would do a video on it. And I thought it was so cool. So come 2017, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. They did a whole nother challenge for the year. And I was like, yes, like, I'm going to do this. I wrote them all down. And then I was even more dedicated, where I was going to do the year before and the coming years videos, like, on the subjects. And I did really well. And I was really like enjoying the time, like just coming on and talking to people, even though nobody was actually talking to me at the time, but, you know, just talking to the camera, expecting an audience later on. And then people started finding me and following my content and would comment and stuff like that. And I made some really great friends along the way. And I was like, yeah, this is a thing now. And I just started doing more and more videos. But it really took a lot of gumption at first, because I was really worried about it. But the YouTube Pagan Challenge kind of like pushed me. It was like, it's okay. It just like pushed me into it. And I'm like, okay, here I am. This is what I'm doing now. And then I actually was okay for a while. And then I started second guessing myself. I had, you know, a couple of people come to me and talk to me about it, and I was just really not sure if this was something I wanted to continue to do. And I stepped out of YouTube for a while, for a long time. And I still haven't even been fully back. I keep saying, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it. And then life just keeps happening. So that's why I'm kind of glad that I have like you guys and found, you know, like Christian Witches round table, and we all just started talking, because it kind of gave me some accountability to like get back on the ball and get back to doing videos on subject matter that actually feel passionate about. Like I thrive on it. Like I want to talk about it, and I don't have people want to talk about it.
It's not the same when you feel like you're all alone and that people are going to judge you for a specific topic or for a specific video or what have you. But when you have backup, when you have that club, when you have, that connection.
Yeah.
It makes you want to do it, or at least you are actually consider doing it.
Yeah, and then it also gets you thinking too. Like it got me thinking of like doing things that I didn't want to do before. Like I'm dedicated that I want to get back on track with YouTube and with my personal channel, and I want to do like tarot readings and stuff like that, because that's what I've been following now. Like I can't get enough of them. Like that's all I want to watch now. Because you learn things like, I never even knew like pick a piles existed. I was like, this is mad cool, and people come up with different things and stuff like that. So that's something though that I wanted to do originally when I first started my channel, but I was not strong yet in reading cards, reading tarot. I was learning, seriously investing the time in it and studying and stuff like that, at least with tarot. So I wasn't quite comfortable yet to start there. So I started smaller projects. But I mean, for years, I had, kept thinking like, I could do this. And then there was always that small voice in the back of my mind, that'd be like, no, you can't. The little bitch voice is what I call it. The little one that's in there like, no, you can't. What are you talking about? You're going to go on there and you're going to look like a fool. And you're going to be like, so, and look like a crazy buffoon. And it just took one video. And then I was like, I can do this. The tricky part was finding things to talk about. That's what I think made it easier with the YouTube Pagan Challenge, because they gave you subjects. And then because they gave you subjects, it got your brain going, and I was like, oh, I could do this subject. I could talk about this, and it just kind of took off from there, for me at least. But I have hit a ceiling.
How would you feel being the one actually proposing those topics? What would be that topic that you would kill to actually participate in a debate about, but you haven't seen it, or maybe you're not that ready to do it right now, but it would be a very good goal? What is the thing? Because we go from not finding any information into this bucket full of, miscellaneous tools. And then you hope that there is a specific nagging thing that you've been dying to know about and talk with people, but say, what if they say that I am crazy, or they chew my head off, or
they're like, oh, we can't talk about that subject. Yeah. That's taboo, like something like that. Like, as you say, they get booty tickled over, like, oh, we can't talk about that. I know there's one that immediately sprung to my mind when you said it, and it's something that I don't see gets talked about a lot in the community. It's sex magic. I said it.
There you go. When it's everything that has to do with spirituality, and don't tell me that you have never thought about it. It sounds dirty. Kundalini, ascension, everything, because we are sexual beings. So of course we're going to incorporate la petite mort, the small death. Yes, how we heaven.
It goes even beyond that. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be like just sex magic, but like, one thing that really I got really passionate about was like red tent circles, like women coming together and talking about like their womanhood, their menstruation and childbirth, and the things that women talk about behind closed doors, but don't come out and publicly talk about it. And for
Wait,
someone like me who struggled with issues with that, it's nice to know that, like, oh my God, so somebody else is going through something similar to what I'm going through, you know? And then, you know, now you have like the yoni eggs, the yoni steams, you know, and like there's so many like passionate things, like, or things that I'm passionate about just with that, you know. And then you tie in sex magic, tantric sex, like you said, the kundalini, however you say it,
yeah.
kundalini, the spirit of life, you know, 2 chakra systems coming together to create, to source, you know. And then as far as like the Christian aspect, like, I remember, I think it was you and I one night when we were talking, and I was talking about the sacred marriage, the sacred sex that was talked about in order to get closer to God. Like, that's something that I think should get talked about more. And just love magic, because, you know, when you bring up love magic, a lot of people think like, oh, you're trying to make this person, you know, love you, and you're trying to put a spell on them. And it's like, no, you know, they start thinking love potion number 9 and shit. It's like, no, but how about like deepening a relationship, you know, or attracting soulmates and things like that. A lot of that doesn't get discussed because it's a very, you know, taboo issue. People get booty tickled over. And I'm over here like salt and pepper. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me.
Honestly, you know what I saw the other day? And you people know it. Don't try to deny it. I saw on Facebook an ad for making molds out of your asshole. So if people are watching that, I think that we can talk like adults about how we relate to each other in a sexual way.
They have molds for even, you know, your coochie, and for, you know, your man's, you know, penis. Like, seriously, like, they have molds for all of those things, you know, again, but it's things that don't really get talked about that much, you know. And I feel that's something that could get talked about more in our community. I mean, and then I have just regular basic subjects that even I can't get enough of, which is like Book of Shadows. You know.
Oh, no. You're not going to do that to me. You're not going to do that to me. I finally got you there, and we are going to talk about the yoni and the kundal people.
Okay. There's other subjects too that, you know, I can't get enough of as well, you know, like Book of Shadows, like tarot and all that, you know. But definitely sex magic, love magic, the red tent, like the yoni, anything that you see with that. Like, the thing that really got me, like, where I felt was a rabbit hole for me, was especially being a Christian, or identifying myself as a Christian witch. You know, the original like fish symbol for Jesus, where it's sideways,
the vesica.
And, you know, everybody was saying that that's the sign of Jesus because he was a fisherman, or a fisher of men.
AJ.
If you turn it, if you turn it vertically, it looks like a woman's opening. It's the yoni. Like, and I thought that was a perfect symbol in Christianity for the sacred feminine that goes overlooked. That's another subject I would get passionate in discussing about, which kind of goes hand in hand with like the red tent, and I feel, at least, in yonis and stuff like that, is the sacred feminine and Christian witchcraft. Because you hear a lot of Christian witches will talk about Jesus and how he's their patron and stuff like that. But one thing that does become, I've noticed with some, not with all of them, but with some, does become an issue is when you start talking about sacred feminine. If you start talking about like Mary Magdalene, you know, or the missing goddess, the lost goddess in the Bible, like Jehovah's Wife, you know, or you know, Mother Mary, for instance. So like that's the whole issue myself right there.
We are in a very unique position because we are right in the middle of a very important discussion. That is what has been the role of the female energy in religion and spirituality. It doesn't matter where you're coming from, even if it's from these very tight, very misogynistic religions. The woman still has a part to play as a divine being.
Exactly.
And you just reminded me of this. There is certain litanies in Catholic Church about the Virgin Mary, about the Sacred Rose. And I don't know why that came to mind, but
maybe because I grew up Catholic. I was confirmed Catholic.
I was gonna be a long time ago. That was before I discovered boys. So
that's right. You said you were going to be a nun. You were going to dedicate yourself to the church. I never went that far. I was always that kid in Sunday school that went, but why?
Still that the questioner. Because for those, I don't know if that's still, but back in the day, back when I went to Catholic school, there was something called corporal punishment. That if you would step out of your boundaries, yes. So,
like I said, flashbacks. When you said corporal, punishment, I was like, oh yeah, I remember. And then I'd remember the look the nuns would give my parents when they would come to pick me up after mass for Sunday school. They'd be like almost like, never again. Don't bring her to class. But yet I was still confirmed. Confirmed Catholic. I chose Saint Lucy as my patron saint.
And this is the thing that I don't understand. Maybe you can help me here, because I know I wasn't that spot where there was a clear difference, but maybe me being this old and me getting over that fact, maybe I cannot see it. I have never seen a practice from an organized religion more close to witchcraft as we know it as the Catholic rites.
Oh, I agree. I mean, we've discussed this a couple of times. Like, when I started delving in, when I finally went down this huge, wormhole and stumbled into witchcraft, and found out, like, oh my God, there's other religions besides the one I've been practicing all my life. For real? Like, I mean, there was other denominations that I knew, but people who didn't believe in the Christian God, that blew my mind. I was very sheltered. So I stumbled upon it. I was like, well, now I want to know. And then I started looking up things and finding out stuff. And when I started delving into witchcraft more and more, I was like, this seems a lot familiar. Like the cakes and ale ceremony. I'm like, that's almost like communion. Yep. That's pretty much the same thing. The way the rituals would go, and like the offerings that were made on you're supposed to lay on your altar when you do rituals and stuff like that, depending on what kind of ritual you do. Because I know it all depends. We would have that at mass, and they'd always come down with the incense, and you'd always bless your forehead with the holy water, and kneel and all that. Like, seriously, I think about it and I'm like, this is witchy as hell. Like, it really is. Like, and just when I found out about the holidays alone, that blew my mind. It's still blowing my mind. I just found out the other day that birthdays are pagan. Like, birthday traditions, like blowing out candles and cakes, is pagan. I'm like, really?
Witch was blowing a candle? Pagan? Nah.
Valentine's Day, Lupercalia, Lupercal, or however they say it. Like, I'm getting a little off subject, so I'm trying to veer it back.
If you think about it, what we do on Christmas, we get drunk, we stay in, and a lot of babies are born around the summer because that's what we're doing. So
exactly. And the thing that I never got was, why at Easter time do we celebrate the Easter Bunny and eggs and Jesus at the same time. Like, what does the bunny and eggs have to do with Jesus? And then I found out that bunnies and eggs are really a fertility rite, because bunnies, sex magic, anyone right there, you know, you doing it like bunnies, and eggs symbolizing the actual fertility of it, the offspring. Well, not of a rabbit, obviously, but symbolically, that's what it's supposed to represent. You know, the fertility of the earth coming back to life. You know, that blew my mind. I was like, so all this time that I've been thinking Easter bunnies bringing me stuff, I've been sort of praying to a pagan god. Really? Like, it's one of those where like your eye twitches moments, like where you're like breaking inside, like everything I believed in was a lie.
It's that Santa Claus moment.
Yeah.
You're 40. And I know
my moment was not Santa Claus though. My moment was the tooth fairy. That's when I found out that everything was up. I was awake one night, as I tend to do, and I was reading my book with a flashlight under the covers, and I heard my mom talk to my dad. I just lost a tooth. She like woke my dad up. She's like, Mike, what? Did you get Angie's tooth from under her pillow? No. She's like, you better go over there, take her tooth and put $1 under the pillow. Okay. He gets up, comes out. I'm like, okay, I'm going to pretend I'm sleeping, because I was like, are you kidding me? You know, I'm thinking, they lied. So I'm laying there, I'm quiet, pretending I'm sleeping. I took my tooth and put it in my hand and hid it. So he couldn't find it. He leaves the $1. He goes back to bed. She asks him, did you leave the $1? Did you get the tooth? He's like, I couldn't find the tooth, so I just left the $1. And she said, what if she finds the tooth? So I'm laying there, I'm like, it's time. And I get up and I go over to my mom's room, and she's still got her light on, and she sees me. She's like, what are you doing out of bed? And I open my hand and I go, with the tooth. I'm like, Sam, you want to tell me? And she's like, where did you find that? I'm like, I heard everything. And she went,
idea. Now I have my
went, are you kidding me? And I said, yeah. I said, does this mean the Easter Bunny's not real?
You just gave me an amazing idea. I'm going to teach my nieces and my grandchildren that to tell mom and dad whenever they lose their tooth, you know, I heard in the internet that they're, instead of giving $1 or $5 or 10, they were doing savings bonds, CDs.
For a tooth.
For a tooth.
Inflation.
I can say that. Because I didn't have the tooth fairy. Being from Latin America, we had a mouse. Okay, we were that poor.
Really?
We were, yes. So you can see that something that actually brings you money instead of being a fairy. Because I imagine her like a Tinkerbell. No, it's a dirty mouse. That it doesn't even look like Mickey Mouse. No, it's a dirty sewer rat-like mouse that brings you money. And if you have OCD like me, you were paying attention to just squish that bastard away before they get your pillow.
I just remember looking at her and I was like, does this mean Easter Bunny's not real? And she was like, no. I'm like, what about Santa? And she went, do you want Santa not to be real? Or I'm like, do you want to know the truth about Santa or something like that? And I went, no. I'm going to bed. So I knew then that it was probably not true, but I chose to still believe because of the magic. You know what I mean? Like, it really does make it a lot more fun. Like, that magic of thinking that someone's bringing you a present. Like, but knowing the pagan, like, stuff behind it, like, with the Easter Bunny, even the Tooth Fairy, for Christ's sake, fairy! And then the magical, mystical being of Santa Claus coming at Christmas time. I thought it was hysterical. Like when you just kind of like start finding all of the little threads and how they all just kind of weave together though from like one to another. Like Catholic roots, like it definitely got its roots from paganism. Our holidays, our names. I mean, there are some traditional Christian holidays, or I would say Judaic Christian holidays, like Passover, or things like that, that more the Jewish people celebrate, the feasts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those are, those really aren't, as far as I've noticed, are not, you cannot be tied to paganism. But like all the other things that we know today and celebrate today is very much pagan. That's, I think, what really got me into believing that you could have the best of both worlds. Like if you resonated being a Christian witch, like I did, but still liked the pagan aspect of the natural way of life, like the wheel of the year and the homeopathic, the holistic part, it seemed a lot more peaceful and more balanced than what I was learning in the church. Because as we were talking earlier about the sacred feminine, that was my turning point. That's why I felt I never fit in the Catholic Church or any church, because all my life growing up in the church, I always saw the men were the ones in power. And I mean, I'm not saying that like women are better than men. I'm not saying that. I'm not a Nazi feminist. But I'm still a feminist that I think that women are just as equal as men. And if you know enough about the Catholic Church, women are deemed as immoral and the sinners, and we're the reason for the fall of humanity. And even our periods are unclean. And while we, if you go by the Bibles, what's the word I'm thinking of? Direction or whatever, or depiction. Whenever you have a period, you're not even supposed to set foot out of your house. You're not supposed to like let a man see you. That's what the red tent was all about. You're supposed to go into the red tent and stay there with the women while your courses were running, and wait till it was over, and then you were cleansed and clean and could come back out. I was like, seriously?
Way too gross. I can't. I have mine. And no, you don't want to go there. You don't want me to go there. There's a lot of things that are written in the Bible that actually depict the way of life back then. Of course,
which I get.
Also the animals that they used to eat, that they would consider other animals as bad for eating, those were the ones that had parasites or actually kill them. So it's an evolution.
We're known to get sick off of faster. Like that's one of the reasons why like shellfish is outlawed, because I am a cook, and I know this for facts, because of ServSafe and everything. Shellfish is like one of the most quickest foods to get foodborne illness is, because of the bacteria that it naturally has. And the ammonia can build up, especially like with crab and with lobster, even with shrimp, but crab and lobster especially. Like if you don't take care of it and keep it in the correct temperatures and keep it correctly stored and use it by a certain time, it can spoil really fast. And if you ingest it, you can get sick quickly from it. So it would make sense back then, when they didn't have refrigeration, they didn't have all of the tools that we have now, that they wouldn't be allowed to eat it, even though it's something they could easily catch, like fish. They could easily catch crabs or lobsters or whatever was in their area, but it wasn't as easy, I guess, to eat them and not get sick. So they just realize, well, this isn't good to eat. This is unclean food. We shouldn't eat it.
Literally.
Um,
Literally.
yeah.
What does magic means to you?
That went from like there to like there. There's not really an easy answer, like a one-word answer. The only thing I can think of when I say
You
what does
have
magic
to
mean
explain it to a person that you love because you want them to understand how it makes you feel. How would you describe it?
it's everything. It's a way of life. I'm gonna sound so Star Wars here. They give the
This is
best
the place to do
description
that.
of it. It's the force. It really is. Like, as the Star Wars says, the force around us. It's what binds us together. You can see it everywhere, you know? The way the earth moves on its axis, the sun setting and rising, the moon, you know, how it affects the tides, how it affects the birds and nature, and seeing it go from, right now we're in winter in the northern hemisphere, so it's dying, it's in the dark time, but we're getting to that point where, you know, seedlings are going to start popping up. You're going to see signs of life again underneath, waiting for spring to come and the land to be bountiful again, and then crops start busting, you know, free, and like that. Just seeing the way, the ebb and flow of life. Life is magic. Magic is life.
Yes, it reminds me of how in the book of the in the Corinthians describes love.
Yeah. Yeah.
How love transforms, how love heals,
And
how
it's patient.
yes.
And it's kind, you know, like, can it have its disastrous moments? Yes. I also see that as ways that we're having more disastrous moments because there's a lot of people who are just abusing this planet, abusing Mother Earth, so to speak, and using her resources and abusing her. And I think she's just getting the shits of it. And she's just like, oh, hell no, you know, and she comes up swinging. And that's what all the natural disasters are, you know, the climate change. It's real, people. I'm going to get political here for a second, but it's real. Climate change is a thing. It's happening.
It is. And unfortunately, and this is something that I am going to say it. We, and when I say we, are the people in the lower tiers. We have to take care of our planet. Because those people that are telling you that climate change is not real, they don't give a fuck about that. Because if they get a virus, they have the money to go into the hospital to get treated. If their house gets flooded, they just move to another place in the country. They don't give a shit.
Not only that, but right now we're okay. You know, we don't see the actual damage. I mean, we can see some evidence of it. I don't care what anybody says. There is evidence out there. You just have to go look and research it for yourself. There is evidence that there is climate change. I mean, take a look in your backyard. I live in South Central PA, and this is late January. We have only had one snowstorm, one like decent snowstorm this season. By January, we should have a lot. We should be getting like snow, quite a lot of it. I remember when I was younger, blizzards after blizzards hitting, and now we just get occasional snowstorms. And that shows like the planet is warming up. We're not having as much snow as we used to in northern, you know, states and northern countries. And then you see that disrupting with the hurricanes and twisters and different things that it all goes down the line, and you start to see the ramifications of it. And we might be okay now in our lifetime. And the people who are saying that it's not a real thing, they may think like, oh yeah, well, it's not going to happen. You know, it might be real, but it ain't going to happen in my lifetime. But what about our children who are going to inherit this earth? What about our grandchildren? our great-grandchildren? What kind of world are we leaving them? What kind of footprint are we leaving for them to clean up? Like, that's an issue. And it's not just using our natural resources. It's also the fact that we, especially America, oh my God, I'm an American. I'm proud to be an American, but sometimes I'm not so proud to be an American. We are the most wasteful country ever. And if you're, I'm part hippie pretty much. And I feel that any witch worth their salt would be invested in Mother Earth and Mother Nature. So these issues are a factor for them. They're important to them just as much as it is for me, as it is for you, for people who aren't even witches. But witches especially, I feel like, should talk about this subject actually more, because it's something that we can do. And if everybody would start doing it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Even if you are not a witch, even if you're not a hippie, even if you're not a person that actually passed the 3rd grade, and there is a reason why I'm saying this. If you believe that this is God's place, that this is the way, and you think that the Bible is telling actually the truth, in the book of Revelations, talk about the death in the sea and the death in the land. And if something like that has been happening since 2010, 2003, the death in the sea, the massive death of animals, the endangered species list it's ridiculous. Skyrocketing. How can you say that that is not true when in your own Bible is describing it as an apocalyptic event?
Look, okay, here's a great example. Like, I'm glad that I actually thought of this, because like, one thing for me is like the Australian wildfires that have been happening. Now, I have, you also have to take things worth a grain of salt when you don't live there, because there were a lot of things I heard. There was a lot of stuff that went viral that was not correct. There were some things that were, skewed, were incorrect. Like, there weren't as many fires as they were saying there were. There was a serious case of it, and I believe that it's still going on. And I'm not certain if 500,000 animals that they thought had been killed. I'm not sure if that number is correct or not, but that's what I was hearing. Like, that right there, that's an epidemic. Can't get the word out. That's what happens when I get heated, when I get real caught up on a subject. That's an epidemic right there. Elephants in India and some of the Middle Eastern countries, that's an endangered species. Pandas in China and Asia, that is a huge epidemic that we're having a problem with. Even the Amazon. Do you remember the fires in the Amazon? Like, these are issues. These are things that didn't happen that long ago. I feel like, maybe it's just because I'm more aware of it because I'm an adult now, but I feel since I've been a teenager to an adult, more natural disasters have happened like this. California wildfires, the wildfires in Australia, the wildfires in the Amazon, and all of these things that just happened naturally. The tsunami that happened over in like Thailand, and all of that, that's just epic proportions of how Mother Nature is trying to talk to us and tell us that something's up with her, and we need to take a look and fix it and do something about it before it becomes an even bigger issue down the road, before we can't do anything about it. And that's why I said, like, what people, a lot of the people, the politicians and stuff that are saying it's not a real thing and stuff like that, are against it because they don't want to admit that maybe they don't know how to fix it. And they don't want to fess up the cash. Exactly. One of the things that blew my mind was when
this person said that windmills cause cancer. I love that one. Oh my God.
People just talk out of their asses sometimes, and you're just like, seriously? Seriously?
Stop being funny. Go.
Don't even get me started on things I've heard people say that I'm like, that's what I'm talking about, the program that we've all been lied to, just like how anything we've seen or heard that has been mass produced, it's all part of the program, so to speak. That's how I put it. Huh?
The Matrix.
It all goes back to the Matrix. I just finally watched that movie for the first time, like a couple weeks ago, in its entirety. I had never seen it before in its entirety, and I finally just saw it because somebody kept bringing up the Matrix, and everywhere I would go, somebody would talk about it, and I'm like, okay, I get the message. I'm supposed to watch the Matrix, and now every time it keeps getting referred back to it. I'm like, okay, what are you trying to tell me here? Am I like Neo or something? Do you ever have those moments like where you sit and you're like, what's the meaning of life?
Oh, every day.
Me and my one coworker, my one boss, he and I we'll have discussions like that. Be like, do you ever think that all that you're seeing right now is actually your life flashing before your eyes before you die? That right now we're actually dying. We're on our deathbed somewhere, and we're just reliving our memories. And I'll be like, we shouldn't talk about these kinds of things. They're like brain melting and warping, and they freak you out because you're like, well,
you would not survive 5 seconds inside my mind.
You can't either. I tell people, you don't want to know what goes on in my mind. It's dark in there. Don't go in there. If you knew the things I think of every day, like just weird things that happen, like because the conversation got started because we were talking about deja vu.
Yeah.
And he said that's why you have like deja vu moments, because it's your brain going, oh yeah, I remember that. Like when your life's flashing before your eyes. I know it's a silly subject, but like that's what kind of gets you thinking. And like the whole program thing, it's kind of what happens to people, like, that work 9 to 5 jobs, that do this, do as they're told, and just keep doing this and doing that. They think that that's all that life is, that that's all that there is to it. They don't see beyond their horizons. They don't test the waters or go here, try this out, or delve into this subject or try something new, because they're just doing what they were told to do all their life. Like I said, I didn't know that there was other religions. I mean, I was taught in school that there was other mythologies, not religions, mythologies.
Interesting, right?
Pop culture is something I look up to. So like when Alan Rickman passed and David Bowie passed and Prince was like, I think the worst. I took that one hard. I remember all day I kept playing When Doves Cry and Purple Rain over and over again all day long. Because I was like, it can't be true. It can't be.
Do you think that those will be the next saints? We have Saint Bridget. We have Santa Barbara, Saint Expedite. We have all of these saints of people that did miraculous things. And when you mentioned the pop pantheons, and we have seen Frida Kahlo, we have seen really inspirational people in Mother Teresa. I have seen, but that's more in the Catholic pantheon. But if people in the Catholic Church have that option to attribute to an archetype, like for example, I don't know about you, but remember when Pope John Paul II died, that there were rumors that there were miracles happening because of people praying to him. There's the dynamic of actually putting a service or an offering to a saint. I actually have in my altar, I have probably is a coincidence, but there is no such thing as coincidences. I always have this red candle with very specific spices around it. And when I had this thing and said, I should get some apples. And like a joke in my own head, said, am I building a service to Santa Barbara? And something said, wait. And I went to my phone and I looked at I have this hoodoo magic correspondence thingy, and I looked at Santa Barbara, and the offering was for my son, for a protection for my son. And it says the Santa Barbara offerings are used for soldiers, for protection. And maybe it was something that I read a long time ago. Maybe it was just a coincidence.
Like, your mind went, woo.
Woo, yeah.
Your spidey senses were tingling.
Do you think that we can have that even though we don't? And it's not fair, because if religions can attribute magical powers to relics and like crucifix, or to a special cup, or a church per se, why do we feel so silly to attribute abilities to, for example, David Bowie, or to Frida Kahlo, or to things like that, if we are not even sure? We're just taking at a face value that Santa Barbara, or Saint Bridget, or Saint Teresa of Jesus. That's a nun that used to be my matron saint a long time ago. We're just taking that as a face value. We don't even know if those people really existed, and yet we are following directions on how to, pray to them and what have you, since always. And this is something that Catholics do.
It's also part of that Catholic pantheon that nobody really wants to discuss, that it really is a pantheon.
It is a pantheon. Let's say it. It's a pantheon, and it's hundreds and hundreds, if not
I'm just saying other people don't want to say it. They want to say pantheon. It's not a pantheon.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. In the
have a group of saints. Well, like you said, Saint. For what was it? Barbara was the one that you would go to for like soldiers and stuff like that. Saint Jude is the one of children. Saint Francis of the animals,
And expedite. Saint Anthony, you put it upside down until it gives you a boyfriend. And people swear by this.
Or like Saint Christopher. What was Saint? Isn't Saint Christopher for
the cops?
Yeah, I know cops and like rapid first responders. I know are like a big one for that. Yeah, like that's huge. That's a huge pantheon thing right there. I mean, the whole Holy Trinity. Come on.
And I didn't learn the Catholic pantheon from the Catholic Church. I learned it from the Santeria followers.
Yes, because they're more.
Yeah, they know they're saints.
More devoted to it. Yeah. But I mean, it's even in the Catholics. Like, I even remember that. Because I mean, what do when you get confirmed? You pick a patron saint who will be with you all of your life.
That's witchy.
And they ask you why you chose. Like when you're going through confirmation class, they ask you why you're choosing that saint. You can't just come up with one like, oh, I wish I would have came up with something cool. I wish I would have came up with. I'm picking Saint David Bowie. Because he's a star man and he is a fierce fashionista for his time. He definitely was. And he has some creativity, and this girl needs that. But you go with the program. You go with what everybody else picks, or the traditional saints. But it is back to what we were saying about that. Like, that's something I've noticed that's becoming more popular with today's witches. The last couple of years, I want to say, like in the last decade especially, I've noticed it. Or the last half of the decade, at least. In the last 5 years, I've noticed more people are talking about that, like pop pantheons or pop culture icons that I've seen people make shrines to them. In fact, when I was talking about the whole Prince thing and how that really devastated me, there is a shop that is here in my hometown that is I think that a couple of them they're either hippies or witches. I don't know if they want to call themselves witches, but they really do act like a lot of it. They sell a lot of witchy things there. You know, they have sage and Palo Santo, and they have incense, and you know, you could get a lot of, you know, interesting things from them. They're more like a soap and herbal company, but they had a little like stand, and they had a prayer candle to Prince, and they had one for David Bowie, and they had one for Alan Rickman at the time when I was there, because I saw the Prince one, and they made soap, and they called it Purple Rain, and they had it like all around, and they had like incense burning for him and stuff like that. They had candles lit, and I asked about it, and they said about how they felt that, you know, and they actually had like old cassette tapes of like the people's songs and stuff like that. And I think there was some kind of Harry Potter memorabilia for Alan Rickman. And I remember I asked them about that, and they said about, well, we're just, you know, showing our devotion to them and our, what's the word, remembrance. Just like when someone passes, you go to the Catholic Church, you light the candles in honor of them, or if someone's sick, you light the candles and ask for protection, for health, you know.
And
I don't always have time for a full ritual. Sometimes you just sit down and you're like, all right, let's get this shit done. I got things to do, people to see, places to go, so let's do this.
For those of you who say, what the hell is that? It's just a form of meditation. Is you know how guided meditation works? It's the same thing with the litany. It's the same thing. It's just that when you have to say the words, you're forced to clear your mind because you have no other choice.
I was gonna say, that's one thing that I definitely loved about when I would do the rosary, is if you do it, it does bring you some peace, because it really does. It's like a form of meditation. It really is. Like because you really got to focus on that. You got to remember, okay, which beat am I at? Which section am I? How many Hail Marys have I said so far? That's a lot to remember.
I forgot.
But when you sit down and you're focusing on it, I mean, yeah, any idiot can sit there and just go through it, you know, mindlessly, numblessly, and stuff like that. But even if, you know, you really do it that way and you're just going through the motions, at some point it does kind of become very peaceful and very mellow, because you have no choice. Like you said, your mind has to focus on what you're saying and what you're thinking. You don't have time to think about that cobweb that's over there in that corner that needs to be cleaned out. You're thinking about the cobwebs in your brain that you're cleaning out, getting rid of some stuff. I always found, for me, that doing the rosary was peaceful. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some times I'd be like, again, I have to do it again. It takes so long. And it's one thing that you can't always do in one full shot. And it's not, a lot of people think you're supposed to do it in one full shot. Now, if you're doing it like you said, like when you're doing the 9 days of sorrow, it usually is.
But they give you crackers, cheese, and hot chocolate at the end. So
again, takes a nail, sort of. Commuted, sort of.
You're a teenager and you have nothing going on for you, and that is presented as a no choice thing. You kind of take it, you can see it from, you know, from a whole new perspective. It could be worse. I could be cutting the head of a chicken, to appease another god. So, and he came also from the Catholic Church, and he was disillusioned with the whole process and what have you. What have you brought with you from the Catholic Church that it makes you feel like the transition was even better, that if, for example, for those witches that come from the Protestant religion? that all of this is from the devil and none of it is, that they're not even familiar with candles or incense, that they don't have that background. What can you bring from your experience into the witchy community, your witchy space?
Well, everything from my childhood, like it has permeated into my witchcraft, which is why I couldn't just go full-blown pagan witch, because I tried to connect to like pagan gods and I'm like, this doesn't feel right, because I always had that Christian God background and mine was very like Catholic, yes, and I did grow up in a half home, so I was half Catholic, half Lutheran, but more Catholic because that's what my dad's family pushed, so that's what was said, that's what went. And I went through all the motions, you know, and it was when I was like 13, 14, I was like, what the hell am I doing here?
Oh my God, do you
But
have a very Catholic middle name, like Mary or Martha?
no, my middle name is Lynn. My middle name is Lynn. Thank the heavens. My name is Angela Lynn. So, and it fits me. It fits me because Angela means messenger of God and Lynn means flowing water or body of water. So, and considering I resonate more with the water element, it makes total sense. Like power of a name, it's really cool. And I found out my last name means bold one or brave one. Bold or brazen. That was the word. Bold or brazen was the exact description of it. But
what is your take on angels?
You're really like bringing them all out, aren't you? I never really finished the other one.
In case I cannot trap you into another interview for a while. Stretch it.
You can trap me into an interview anytime. It's just conflicting of schedules is the issue. As far as I bring a lot of my Catholic into Catholic Christianity, like Mother Mary is definitely a big part in my practice. The same as Jesus, the same as the Our Father prayer. I say that almost every day. The Rosary, because I have that. I do not say the Rosary every day. If I'm lucky, I say it once a week. But I do like having it in my hands when I'm actually praying, when I'm just talking to God. I do like to hold it in my hands because I get very fidgety. I like to talk with my hands a lot. And if I keep my hands busy, I notice that I'm able to keep a more channeled, I guess, way with God. Like I actually stay focused on the matter at hand. I can actually speak to him, pray to him. Let me see here. What else do I have? Candles and incense for sure is definitely a thing for me. Like every Christmas, I like to burn frankincense and myrrh. There's just a lot of things that I can't even think of, like off the top of my head. But like I'll like when it comes up, I'll be like, oh yeah, I could tell you this. This comes into it. Just different things that, like I even say like Hail Marys every now and again when I feel the need to. But I think the biggest thing would be the rosary and some of the prayers that I was, told as a child, like prayers before you eat. That was a big one. That one's very Catholic. That one I still say to this day, silently to myself before I eat. And angels, well, angels I've always believed in since I was a little girl. And that might also be because my mother believed in them very strongly. And I remember she had like oodles and oodles of books on the subject, like angels here on earth, people's, like where they were like in a car accident and someone helped them get out. But when they tried to find the person, they were nowhere to be found. And they swear that it was a visitation by an angel. Like my mother was very, very adamant that there were angels all around us, you know, and she always used to, you know, say like that there was a guardian angel looking out for you, that there were angels looking out for you. And so when I found witchcraft, that was actually how I found witchcraft, to be honest.
So we had some technical difficulties, and I'm going to leave it here. Maybe I'm going to cut the part where everything turned black, but no. You were talking about angels, about the tiers of angels and the categories, and tell us. That was so creepy.
I know. They're like, no, we don't like this. We don't like this. Angels, I'm telling you, just like, you know, you hear about fairies being pesky little, you know, things sometimes. I think angels are too. I think angels, you know, they only want us to know so much. They're like, wait a minute, they're getting too in depth here. Because, you know, everybody likes to see angels as like these comforting wings, you know, that are loving, and they are. I see that they are, but I also see that just as they are loving and comforting and compassionate, they are also warriors. I mean, Archangel Michael with the frickin' sword of truth, like, they are mighty, they are strong, and when they come in your life sometimes and work within you and show you signs and things like that, sometimes it'll scare the bejesus out of you. I had a dream of him. I was in the middle of a field of sunflowers. Sun was shining. I was trying to figure out why I was in the middle of a field of sunflowers, and all of a sudden there was this angel in my dream, and he's handed me his sword, telling me to cut it all. And I was like, what? Cut what? What are you talking about? And he just handed me the sword, and he was like, I want you to cut it all. Cut it all. And I'm just standing there looking at him like, you crazy? Cut what? What do you want me to cut? And then, end of dream. At least that's all I remember. And then, you know, it's what, the next day? I think it literally was the next day. Sitting and watching a video on YouTube. It was a tarot video, actually. And I was getting ready. I was going out that day, and I had my, you know, YouTube on. I listened to this lady, and it was one of those pick piles. And I picked the pile I wanted, scrolled to that part. She starts pulling out her cards, and she was like, "Yeah, Archangel Michael is coming to you right now." And I was like, you know, I'm just kind of like doing my hair, and I hear this. She's like, "Yeah," and I feel like he's handing you his sword. And I was like, what? I literally like paused the video. I was like, shut the frick up. She did not just say that. Scrolled it back. There she did. And the picture on the card, I was like, there's sunflowers in that picture. I'm like, did I watch this last night? And I don't remember watching it. Went through my history. Did not watch it. I remembered seeing it and going, oh, I should watch that. I want to see what that says. But I never watched the video. Put it in my watch later, and then I watched it the next day, and I was like, what? And then I started seeing it everywhere. I started seeing like swords in a lot of like movies, just seeing images of it. And then the thing that really got me was in the video she talked about paying attention to signs, because, you know, signs are the biggest thing that angels or any divine creature, God, is going to show you. That's how they commune with you, us lowly human beings. Because if they actually spoke to us, let's face it, we'd shit a brick and fall over dead, have a heart attack, and then meet him in the sky and be like, did you really have to be that dramatic? So they send us little signs, like a dime, a feather, you know, something that goes, hey, wait a minute. You know, and so she said, pay attention to signs, pay attention to numbers repeating, because there's the angel numbers thing, which I see a ton of those, like 1111. I see that a lot. The biggest ones, though, that I see a lot is 444 and 555. I see those ones a lot, and 222. I see those ones a lot. So, you know, of course, whenever I see them, I'm like, okay, and I'll look them up. look up what the meanings of them are. And she also said about like songs, music, and that's what spoke to me, because music is something that speaks to my soul. That right there is magic. That in itself. Nobody believes in magic. Listen to music.
Yeah, that's
Listen to music and tell me that's not magical.
that is.
Hear a song from your childhood you haven't heard in 20 years. Haven't heard it, haven't sung it. It plays on the radio. You remember every single word. You remember the music video. You remember the dance moves. You can remember a moment in high school you were strutting down the hall and you saw your crush walking by. Like, it takes you back. You can remember smells. Like, that itself right there is magical. So if anybody tells me they don't believe in magic, that's what I tell them. Listen to music and tell me that that's not magical. That's what I'm saying. Like, what people say they don't believe in magic, I tell them, go listen to music. Listen to frequencies. Pay attention to the music that you're listening to.
Yeah.
You know, if you're depressed and all you're listening to is Alanis Morissette, you know, in her angsty grunge days, isn't it ironic that you're still feeling depressed?
So, what is that you want to see in your practice in the next couple of months?
Oh, that's a good question.
What is the cat in the hat? The alley cat in the hat. It's
Alley cat in the black hat.
Alley cat in the black hat, which, by the way, her link to her YouTube channel is going to be down in the description. And she has this cute witchy hat on her profile. We have to get our game on with the hats.
I know. I didn't even think about it. It's over there. It's my Halloween stuff. And that all got started because I chose that name because Alley Cat is like a, what do they call it? An anagram?
Mm-hmm.
Where you take all the letters of your name and then you put them all together and then you come up with another name or, you know, other words. Alley Cat is an anagram from my name. And I love cats. I've always identified myself as a cat lady. Not the crazy cat lady that's got a million bajillion of them, but I'm definitely a cat person. And then I was thinking like, well, how can I make that fun and like a play on words? And then I was thinking about it. I was like, well, I'm kind of going, because I was like, how am I going to signify that I'm, part of the witchy community? And that's when I was like, well, what are witches? What is symbolic with witches? And then I started thinking about witches' hats. Black hat, alley cat, and the black cat, and then it just stuck. So, for my channel or just for my practice, or for both?
Because I have seen that you have come a long way in just a couple of months into places that you really didn't thought that you were going to, dip your toes into, at least not yet. So
well, like what I was discussing earlier is I've been really trying to get the time to do videos for tarot, because I really do feel that is something that calls to me, because when I have the time to sit and do a reading, like my friend actually did it the other night. I did a reading for her and she recorded me, because I don't always remember everything I say. It's like I'm there, but I'm not there. I like step out for like a second and channel everything. I'm like the channel. So she played it back for me, and I'm like listening to it. I'm like, I did not sound like that. Like I totally didn't sound like myself at all. And like things I said, I'm like, I don't remember saying that. She's like, you really don't remember saying that? I'm like, no. So
it's scary.
It is.
That's how you incriminate yourself.
It's a little scary, but I also find that it helps people. Yeah. And I'm not trying to deter anybody. I'm not trying to swindle anybody. I'm trying to help people. That's what I would like to do, is help people with the gifts that I've been given. And since I obviously have a knack with cards and card reading and can channel spirit, Holy Spirit, when I'm doing that, that's what I would like to do. I mean, I already do it for friends and family, and it's something that I've thought of doing, like even as a side project, like a side business, to actually see if I could make it a business, if I could make a profit from it. Not that I want to like swindle people for money, because that's been my stickler with wanting to do it, is because I don't want people to be like, oh, she's just doing it because she wants money. No, but I'm thinking, if I can use my gifts to make a profit from it, that actually would, allow me a lot more time to invest in that, to helping other people. Because one of my hangups with doing that right now is because I have a 5 days a week, 9 to 5 job. Technically it's 8 to 4 pretty much, and depending on the day, sometimes I'm there longer, job, and I don't have the time to come home and do the things I would like to do for others, like do readings and channel spirit for them. Because when I'm at work and I'm busting my butt all day, I come home, I'm exhausted. I don't have the energy to do it. So that's a project I definitely want to try. So that's in my practice and on my channel, is doing tarot readings for the public, for the general public, and then more in-depth readings with other people if they would like, to try to help them and make it like a side business. And for just my path in general, just definitely more growth. That's always what I always like to say. I want to see like where I'm going to be months from now. I'd like to see what I'm learning at that point. What have I learned? What have I, what new strengths have I found? What new gifts have I found, so to speak? What weaknesses do I have to work on? Because like I know my weaknesses now. The one thing with that is self-confidence, remembering to have self-love within myself. So that's something I want to keep also putting in my spiritual practice, is me time.
I really need you to say that, because when you watch this video, you're going to understand what I've been bugging you for the last couple of weeks. Because this project, it's about people that have your story. That is just the in between, that maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Why shouldn't I? Why? Because your time is valuable. Because your gift is unique and valuable. Because you know deep inside that you can help, and you have already helped a lot of people. And there are ways. What is it says in the Bible? That if you bury your talents, they're not going to prosper. You have to invest those talents. And for that, we have to be there for each other. And this is exactly what I've been trying to do. These women, this wonderful group of women, have amazing untapped talents. Okay? And they have this disposition and this humility that is so refreshing. And Angela, right now in this community, it's lacking in humility.
Because we're at the generation of look at me, look at me, look at me. And that's I think what my biggest hang up is too, because I'm not that type of person. I'm not used to getting attention. So when it's on me, I'm like fade into the background. But I that's what I'm saying about the weaknesses I have to work on, is the self-confidence and having self-love in myself to have the me time, but also really push myself to doing things out of my comfort zone, and admitting to myself that I do have a talent that I do have a gift of being able to channel spirit is something hard for me to admit sometimes. It is. Because fear of rejection, fear of
people questioning,
shame, shame, like all those horrible feelings. But at the same time, like you said, when I see it actually help someone. And the funny thing is, and I tell this to them too, I'm like, you knew this. You knew this. We all know this. We already know the answers. We really do. But for some dumb reason, we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust what spirit is telling us and is sending us all the time. That the only time we actually feel that it's valid and we get the validation is a confirmation from somebody else where they say, look, here's the deal. This is what spirit's telling me to tell you. You need to listen and you need to actually admit it to yourself. Stop, oh, that was just coincidence. Like, you knew, like, I don't know how many times I've sat there and done a reading for somebody and they'll be like, I know. And I'm like, exactly, you do know. But for some dumb reason, you had to sit down with me and for me to tell you that it's true, for you to believe it's true. Instead of believing when spirit told you in the first place. But again, I could take my own advice for that as well, because I'm the same. I know the answer, but I feel like I need the validation from somebody else. Like, I'm not just crazy, right? Like, but I think that's another reason why I want to do it for other people, is just to help them themselves get closer to spirit, get closer to source, become one with the universe. Because that's what I think my biggest goal is for this year, is become one with myself and the universe, like become whole again. Put back all the missing pieces that I've tried to throw away and discard of me throughout the years, put them all back together, because I am me and I am who I am. And it's all about wholeness and loving every piece of yourself, loving every part of yourself in your practice, in your emotional, mental, physical being, spiritual being as well, is just loving who you are and what you're doing in this world, whatever that may be. It may be even something small or simple. What does that movie Zombieland always say? Rule number 32, enjoy the little things. Little things may not seem like a whole lot, but I think that's what makes the big things all the worthwhile. Like the little molehills along the way, the little victories, the little things in life.
If you had one advice to give to a person that has come to you solely on the basis that you two share very similar paths, what would be the one thing that you want them to know and you wish that somebody had told you in the past?
I just gave this to somebody the other day. First of all, research. Be your own research advocate. Research things. Look things up. If something pops in your head, you want to know more about it, look it up. Yeah. We have the technology right in our hands nowadays to find unlimited sources. Like, look it up. But also, try it all. Do whatever floats your boat. Like, find what sticks for you and what stinks for you. What sticks for you is what you're meant to do, and what stinks for you, get rid of. Let it go. Move on. Flush it.
Flush it.
Flush it.
Flush it.